The wind carries the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The sky hangs low, heavy with clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls. You take your first step into medieval life and realize you might not survive to hear it toll again. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. The world greets you not with the familiar hum of engines or the distant wail of sirens, but with silence. A heavy, unbroken silence, as though the earth itself has paused to watch your arrival. You open your eyes to a dull, overcast sky. The clouds move lazily, sluggish in their drift, swollen with the promise of rain. The air feels different here, thicker somehow, carrying a damp, earthy scent that clings to your skin. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, a patchwork of hardened dirt and jagged cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Your shoes, modern and clean just moments ago, are gone. Instead, your feet are wrapped in rough wool that chafes your skin, bound with thin leather straps. The cold seeps in almost immediately. You take your first breath, and it tastes of smoke. Not the crisp, sharp smoke of a burning candle or the chemical sting of exhaust fumes, but something deeper, heavier, the unmistakable scent of wood smoldering in distant hearths. It mingles with the faint tang of livestock and the sour bite of something less pleasant, human waste lingering in the air. The village is alive with smell before it is alive with sight. As you begin to move, the landscape unfolds in fragments. A narrow street stretches ahead, hemmed in by small, crooked houses with sagging thatch roofs. The walls are made from a strange mixture of timber and mud, streaked with dark patches from years of rain. Thin curls of smoke escape from holes in the rooftops, drifting upward before dissolving into the heavy gray sky. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks, low, guttural, and followed by a quick yelp as if chased away. Chickens scatter in your path, their wings flapping violently, talons scraping the cobblestones. You glance down and notice a puddle at your feet, murky and rippling with something oily on its surface. You realize with a sinking feeling that it's not rainwater. Your modern instincts search for signs of welcome, of recognition, but the people you see do not offer smiles. They pass by slowly, wrapped in layers of coarse wool and faded linen, their eyes flicking toward you and then away again. Faces are gaunt, cheeks sunken from hunger, eyes shadowed from lack of rest. A man pushes a wooden cart past you, its single wheel squeaking under the weight of turnips and onions. He mutters something under his breath in a dialect you don't understand, glancing at you with suspicion before hurrying on. The air feels colder here than you expected, not just in temperature, but in the way it presses against you, heavy with the weight of caution. Every sound is sharper, the metallic clang of a blacksmith's hammer striking anvil in the distance, the rhythmic scrape of a broom against stone, the restless bleating of a goat tied to a fence post. There is no constant background hum of modern life, only these isolated sounds that seem almost too loud in the quiet. A sudden gust of wind cuts through the narrow street, swirling bits of straw and dust around your ankles. You pull the thin wool cloak tighter around your shoulders, but it does little to block the chill. A boy runs past, barefoot, his laughter high and breathless. His tunic is patched at the elbows and stained at the hem. For a fleeting moment, you catch his eyes, bright, curious, but the moment shatters when an older woman calls sharply from a doorway. The boy vanishes inside without looking back. You keep walking. The path narrows further, the cobblestones giving way to packed dirt. On your left, A small wooden shrine stands beside the road, weathered and leaning slightly. Its paint is long faded, but a carved figure remains inside, half hidden behind a cluster of withered flowers. Someone has left an offering, a small loaf of bread, already growing hard and stale. The village center reveals itself slowly, not in a grand opening, but in a gradual widening of space. A rough wooden platform stands to one side, its boards darkened from years of rain and wear. You notice the rope hanging from a beam and feel a tightness in your chest. This is no place for celebrations. This is a place for justice, and justice here is neither merciful nor slow. Beyond the platform, a market stirs to life. Merchants arrange baskets of vegetables, slabs of salted meat, and jars of honey. The colors are muted, the smells pungent and raw. A woman haggles loudly with a man selling cloth, her voice sharp, her words tumbling over each other in urgency. The man responds in measured tones, his expression unreadable. You are drawn to the sound of a bell ringing somewhere nearby. Not the clean chime of a clock tower, but a dull, resonant toll, as if each strike carries the weight of centuries. Following the sound, you arrive at the village church, a small stone structure with a heavy wooden door and a single cross fixed at its peak. The walls are damp with moss, and the stained glass in the windows is dull from years of grime. The bell above tolls again, and the sound rolls through the air like a warning. For a moment, you stand there, letting the atmosphere wrap around you. It's not just the buildings or the clothes or the smell of the air. It's the feeling that the world here runs on an entirely different rhythm. Time seems thicker, stretched. Every task is slower, harder. Every decision feels heavier. Here, survival is not a given. It's earned, day by day, with your hands, your back, and your endurance. You wander further, skirting the edge of the fields that lie just beyond the village. Men and women are already at work, bent over in the early morning mist, turning the soil with wooden tools. Their movements are steady, almost mechanical, as though the rhythm has been carved into their bones over years of repetition. A cart passes, drawn by a pair of oxen whose flanks glisten with sweat despite the chill. The driver's face is set in a grim line, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The fields stretch into the distance, fading into a line of dark forest. The trees sway gently, their leaves whispering secrets you can't quite hear. Somewhere within that forest, you imagine, are the wolves you've read about. Lean, hungry, and bold, in a time when men are not yet their unquestioned masters. The thought makes you pull your cloak tighter again. You return toward the village, your senses more aware now. The uneven clatter of a wheel over stone. The scrape of a knife as a butcher trims meat on a wooden block. The low, rhythmic murmur of two women speaking in hushed tones as they knead dough in a doorway. Every sound feels close, immediate, as if the whole village is holding its breath. You notice how the people glance over their shoulders more often than they look ahead. How they keep their words short in public. There is a quiet wariness in every movement, as though danger is not a distant threat, but a daily companion. Somewhere deep in your chest, you begin to understand this is not a place where you can simply exist. This is a place where the air itself feels like a test, where the ground beneath you demands proof that you deserve to stand on it. There are no conveniences here, no safety nets. Every comfort is stripped away, replaced by the raw, unyielding truth of survival. And you've only been here a single morning. You don't yet know the rules. You don't yet understand the dangers. You don't yet realize that the hardest part is not surviving the day, it's surviving the night. The first breath of winter arrives without ceremony. It does not roar in with a sudden storm, nor declare itself with a violent shift in the sky. Instead, it slips into the air quietly, the way a shadow lengthens in late afternoon, subtle, almost invisible at first, until you realize it has surrounded you completely. That morning, the clouds hang lower than usual, sagging over the village as though pressing down on it. The wind carries a new edge, sharp and unkind. The ground, already hard from months of trampling feet and wagon wheels, feels brittle beneath the thin leather of your shoes. Every step sends a whisper of frost rising from the dirt. The villagers move with greater urgency now, their faces partially hidden beneath hoods or scraps of wool wrapped around their heads. Breath blooms in the air in pale clouds that vanish as quickly as they appear. The streets feel emptier, the sounds more muted. Even the dogs seem quieter, their fur puffed thick against the cold. You pass by a cluster of women kneeling beside a trough, their hands red and raw as they scrub cloth in icy water. The fabric stiffens as they wring it out, and steam rises from the wet wool like a ghost fleeing into the air. They do not speak much, only exchange quick glances between the rhythmic slaps of fabric against wood. Every movement speaks of routine, grinding, unchanging routine. The houses seem to huddle closer together now, leaning against one another for warmth. The smell of wood smoke grows stronger, curling out from chimneys in lazy ribbons. Inside those walls, you imagine small fires battling the cold, flickering against damp stone, their warmth barely enough to keep the frost from creeping along the floor. Beyond the market square, the fields lie empty and pale, their soil frozen into ridges that catch the faint morning light. The last of the autumn harvest is long gone, stored away in cellars and barrels. There will be no more fresh bread from soft, newly milled grain. No ripe vegetables pulled from dark soil. What remains are dried beans, coarse loaves of rye, and salted meat, if you are lucky enough to have them. Winter here is not a matter of snowflakes drifting gently from the sky. It is hunger's closest ally. The cold robs the body of energy faster than food can restore it, and every meal feels smaller than the one before. Even the well-fed are never truly warm. By midday, the wind changes, sliding down from the hills with a low moan that rattles the shutters. You follow a narrow path toward the edge of the village, where the trees stand skeletal and bare. Their branches clack against each other like brittle bones in the wind. Beyond them lies a road, hard and pale with frost, stretching toward an unseen horizon. You see a man walking that road, bent forward against the wind. His cloak is patched in a dozen places, and the soles of his boots leave shallow imprints in the frozen dirt. He carries a bundle strapped to his back, wrapped in animal hide. You wonder where he is going and whether he will return. Back in the village, the well has drawn a small crowd. A young boy grips the rope and cranks it slowly, his breath fogging the air as the bucket rises, droplets of water freezing against the rim. The villagers here speak little in the cold. Every word feels like it takes more energy than it's worth. They simply nod in greeting and turn away again, hands disappearing into sleeves. You begin to feel the cold not just on your skin, but deep in your bones. The wool around your shoulders is damp from the mist, and it seems to hold the chill against you rather than keep it away. Your fingers ache when you curl them. Your breath burns faintly as it enters your lungs. You realize how easy it would be, in a place like this, for cold to become not just an inconvenience, but a predator, patient, persistent, and deadly. The sun never fully appears. Instead, a weak gray light filters through the clouds, giving everything the flat, colorless look of an old painting. Time feels slower here, the hours stretching between meals, between tasks, between small bursts of warmth. As evening falls, the air changes again. The wind dies, leaving behind a silence so complete you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. The frost underfoot crunches with every step, and your shadow, faint though it is, seems to move just a fraction too slowly behind you. Windows begin to glow faintly from the inside, not with the warm brightness of modern light, but with the soft, flickering gold of fire. It is a light that dances more than it illuminates, casting shadows on the walls and ceilings like restless spirits. You are invited inside one of the homes, though invited here means simply that someone leaves the door open long enough for you to step through. The space is small, low-ceilinged, with walls of wattle and daub holding in the heat from a central hearth. A pot hangs over the fire, its contents bubbling slowly. The smell is heavy and earthy, a mixture of onions, root vegetables, and whatever scraps of meat could be spared. Around the fire, a family sits close together, their faces orange in the firelight. They do not eat yet. Food is rationed carefully in winter, but they watch the pot as though willing it to cook faster. A small child leans against her mother's side, eyes half closed from fatigue. An older boy sharpens a small blade slowly, the rasp of metal on stone steady and quiet. The walls leak cold no matter how close you sit to the fire. The warmth doesn't spread evenly, it clings to your front, leaving your back exposed to the chill that seeps from the floor and corners. You understand why medieval people slept huddled together under piles of blankets and animal skins. Alone, the cold can find you in minutes. When night truly comes, it feels heavier than the day. Outside, frost forms in delicate veins on the windows, and the air smells sharper. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the occasional shift of wood as it settles. Darkness here is not the mild dimness of a modern city, but a deep, pressing absence of light. Step outside without a torch, and you would vanish into it completely. And somewhere beyond the village's edge, in the forest that now stands black and silent, you imagine other shapes moving, hungry shapes, drawn by the scent of livestock and smoke. Wolves do not fear the dark here. They own it. You lie down that night in the corner, wrapped in a coarse blanket, the fire's glow flickering against your closed eyelids. Every sound outside, the wind, the creak of timber, the faint crunch of snow, feels magnified. You pull the blanket tighter, your breath warm against the wool, and realize this is only the beginning. Winter here will last months. The cold will deepen, the food will dwindle, and the air itself will keep asking the same question, night after night. How much longer can you endure? Morning comes without warmth. The pale light slips through cracks in the shutters, spilling across the dirt floor in thin, uneven lines. You wake not to the chirping of birds or the scent of breakfast, but to the low, hollow ache deep in your stomach. It is not the sharp pain of sudden hunger, the kind you can cure with a single meal, but the slow, gnawing emptiness that has been building for days. The air in the small home is thick with the smell of smoke and damp wool. The fire in the hearth has burned down to glowing embers, barely enough to take the edge off the cold. A pot still hangs over it, but now it holds nothing but a thin, cloudy broth clinging to its sides. The family you stayed with rises quietly. There is no chatter, no soft talk over morning food. They move with the efficiency of people who know that the day will not spare them a moment of ease. A small hunk of bread is taken from a cloth bundle in the corner. It is dense, dark, and dry, the kind of bread that cracks rather than bends. They slice it thin, not to share equally, but to make the illusion that there is more than there is. You are given a piece the size of your palm. When you bite into it, it tastes faintly sour. The coarse grain scratches against your tongue, and you chew slowly to make it last. The bread fills the mouth, but not the stomach. The hunger remains, a low throb beneath your ribs. Outside, the village is already in motion. A woman trudges past carrying a basket on her hip, the shape beneath the cloth suggesting turnips or parsnips. The man from yesterday is at the well again, pulling water that steams faintly in the morning air before turning to ice along the rim. He works quickly. Water is heavy, and in the cold it becomes dangerous to linger. Food here is not a given, it is a prize, and one that nature and circumstance fight constantly to keep from you. The harvest is long past, and the stores laid aside for winter are guarded like treasure. In wealthier homes, barrels of salted meat and fish wait in cellars. In poorer ones, jars of dried beans and small bundles of herbs are all that remain. Every meal must be stretched, every scrap used. You walk toward the market square, though calling it a market in winter feels generous. Stalls are fewer now, their tables mostly empty. What is sold is not meant to delight, but to sustain. Onions with papery skins, knobby roots pulled from the last scraps of soil, small sacks of coarse grain. One stall offers smoked fish, its skin curling and darkened, the smell sharp and salty. Another sells small cakes of hardened cheese, so tough they would need to be soaked before eating. The coins in your hand feel heavier than they should. Here, money is not spent lightly. Every purchase is a calculation. Will this food last? Will it nourish? Will it keep you working another day? You trade for a small bundle of carrots, each no longer than your finger, their skins wrinkled from storage. They are not sweet or crisp, they are survival. As the day unfolds, the hunger sharpens. The cold burns more energy from your body than you can replace. You feel it in your limbs, a dull weakness that makes lifting, walking, and even speaking require more effort. You pass a group of laborers repairing a broken fence. Their movements are slow, their breaths heavy. One pauses to wipe his forehead, though the air is freezing. The hunger drains them more than the cold. In the afternoon, you find yourself near the edge of the fields again. The earth is hard, unyielding underfoot, and nothing grows here now. A few villagers dig at the frozen ground with iron tools, pulling out small roots and whatever scraps the autumn harvest left behind. They keep their heads down, their faces hidden in the shadows of their hoods. The sound of metal against earth echoes across the barren land. Back in the village, the faint smell of cooking draws you toward one of the homes. You pause near the open doorway, where a pot simmers over a fire. Inside is a thin stew, mostly water, with shreds of cabbage and a bone that looks as if it has been boiled many times before. The smell is inviting, but it is a false promise. It will fill the mouth, not the stomach. That night, dinner is little more than the same. Bread, a small portion of vegetables boiled until soft, and a splash of broth. You eat slowly, though your body urges you to swallow quickly, to get more in before it's gone. You resist, not because you have mastered patience, but because you know there will be no second serving. The hunger doesn't sleep when you do. It follows you into your dreams, twisting them into strange visions of feasts and overflowing tables that dissolve the moment you reach for them. You wake with the same dull ache, the same hollow weight pressing against your ribs from the inside. Days pass this way, and you begin to notice how hunger shapes not just the body, but the mind. People's eyes linger a little too long on a loaf of bread in someone else's hands. Conversations trail off when food is mentioned. Even laughter, rare as it is, feels thinner, as though the energy for joy is too expensive to spend freely. By the end of the week, you understand why they call it the bite of hunger. It is not a single wound, but 1,000 small ones. Each day, it takes a little more. Strength from your arms, clarity from your thoughts, warmth from your core. It wears you down, slowly, patiently, until you begin to measure your life not in hours or days, but in meals, and the spaces between them. The day begins gray and damp, the kind of morning where the sky feels too close, pressing low over the crooked rooftops. Mist clings to the narrow streets, curling around corners and swallowing the edges of doorways. From somewhere far away, the steady toll of a bell drifts through the air, slow, measured, and almost mournful. You step out from the warmth of the hearth into the chill, pulling the thin wool cloak tighter around your shoulders. The streets seem quiet, but here, quiet does not mean safe. In this place, silence often means that danger is watching. The cobblestones beneath your feet are slick with moisture, worn smooth by countless steps. They twist and narrow without warning, turning the village into a maze where sight lines are short and escape routes shorter. Wooden shutters hang crooked over narrow windows, many of them closed even in daylight. Those that remain open seem to watch you, dark, unblinking eyes set into the faces of weathered houses. You pass a man standing in the shadow of an alley, his arms folded, his face hidden beneath the hood of his cloak. He does not move, does not speak, but you feel his gaze follow you as you walk by. You keep your pace steady. Here, quickening your step is as good as announcing your fear. The marketplace, though quieter in winter, is still the most dangerous place to linger. Not because of open threats, but because of the ones that slip by unnoticed. You wander between stalls, each draped with goods that range from vegetables to simple tools, and you realize how easily hands can move through the crowd. A brush against your side, a tug at the ties of your coin pouch. Theft here is not a rare occurrence. It is a skill honed by necessity. An older woman warns you without words. She glances toward the far end of the square, where two men lean casually against a cart, their posture too relaxed to be natural. They watch the people passing, their eyes calculating. You pretend not to see them, but you adjust the way your cloak falls, concealing the pouch at your belt. You take a narrow side street to avoid them, only to find yourself in an even tighter corridor between leaning buildings. Here, the smell is different, less of wood smoke, more of damp stone and rot. A rat scurries across your path, vanishing into a gap beneath a door. The sound of boots echoes somewhere behind you, but you don't turn around. Turning your head is an invitation. Not all dangers here are thieves in the shadows. Some walk openly, protected by power rather than stealth. You pass a man in a fine fur-lined coat, his boots clean despite the mud. Two others follow closely behind him, armed with short blades. He does not look at you, but you feel the shift in the air as he passes, the way others bow their heads or step aside. Wealth in this place can protect, but it can also destroy. Closer to the village edge, the streets widen slightly, but the shadows remain. You hear an argument before you see it. Voices low but heated, words spilling out in sharp bursts. Rounding a corner, you glimpse two men standing close, their hands clenched at their sides. One of them notices you and falls silent. The other turns away, pulling his hood up. Whatever the conflict was, it's not over, but they will not finish it in front of you. Here, disputes often resolve themselves in places where no witnesses will interfere. You cross back toward the heart of the village, but the watchfulness doesn't fade. People glance over their shoulders more often than ahead. Even laughter, when it comes, is short-lived, a quick burst before eyes dart to the edges of the street. Trust is rare currency here, and it is spent sparingly. By evening, the air has thickened with mist again, and the streets are lit only by faint lanterns hanging outside doorways. Their flames flicker in the breeze, casting long, trembling shadows across the walls. The darkness beyond their reach is complete, black enough to swallow anything moving within it. You keep to the middle of the road, resisting the pull of the alleys. Somewhere to your left, you hear the faint sound of footsteps matching your own. They pause when you pause. They resume when you resume. You do not look back. In this place, acknowledgement is an invitation, and you are not ready to see what might be waiting. By the time you reach the safety of the hearth, your muscles are tight from holding yourself steady. You close the door, latch it, and feel the warmth of the fire settle over your skin. But the feeling of eyes on you does not fade. In medieval streets, danger is not something that comes for you suddenly. It lingers, patient and unhurried, always close enough to reach you when it chooses. And tonight, you are reminded of an unspoken truth. Here, the shadows are not empty. They are watching. It begins with a sound. Not the clatter of boots on cobblestone or the creak of a wagon's wheel, but a cough, dry, rasping, and far too close. It cuts through the morning air like a crack in glass, sharp enough to make you pause mid-step. You turn your head, but the sound has already vanished into the background noise of the village. The street is quieter today, though you can't quite tell if it's the weather or something else. Faces seem drawn, eyes shadowed. People move more quickly, not pausing to greet one another. Even the market feels subdued. The sellers speak in low voices, their goods covered more than displayed. It is only as you pass a row of houses that you notice the marks. Small bundles of herbs, lavender, rosemary, wild thyme, hang above several doorways, tied tightly with twine. The scent of them hangs faintly in the cold air. You know they are not for decoration. They are for protection, or at least the hope of it. The village well stands empty for once. A few people linger at a distance, speaking in hushed tones, glancing toward one of the smaller cottages. Its shutters are closed tight, the door barred from the inside. Outside, on the ground, a wooden bucket lies on its side, its contents frozen into a thin disk of ice. A woman emerges from a nearby alley, carrying a basket half covered with cloth. She walks quickly, eyes fixed on the road ahead, not looking left or right. You see the edge of a loaf of bread peeking out, alongside what might be onions or garlic. She is delivering food, but she does not knock on any doors. She sets the basket outside the shuttered cottage, steps back, and leaves without a word. You start to notice it everywhere. The way people avoid certain streets, the way they give wide berth to certain doorways. A child's toy lies abandoned in the dirt, its carved wooden edges coated in frost. No one touches it. The danger here does not wear a visible face. It is invisible, moving silently from house to house, carried on the breath, on the skin, on the very air itself. A single cough could be the first sign, or the last. By midday, the wind changes, blowing from the direction of the river. The smell reaches you before the sound, a sharp, foul odor, not just of waste, but of something heavier, more final. The river is the village's lifeline, but it is also its greatest weakness. Everything flows into it, the runoff from the market, the refuse from the homes, the waste from the livestock. And everyone drinks from it. Down by the banks, a group of women scrub clothing against smooth stones, their hands red from cold water. You notice the water is clouded, flecked with bits of straw and silt. One of the women pauses to press her sleeve against her mouth, coughing softly before returning to her work. That evening, you find yourself in one of the larger homes, drawn by the promise of warmth. The fire burns brightly here, casting a golden glow across the room. But the air is thick, not with smoke, but with the heavy, sour scent of sickness. In the corner, under a rough blanket, someone lies still, their breathing shallow and uneven. No one speaks above a whisper. A bowl of water sits nearby, darkened by floating herbs. A damp cloth rests on the sick person's forehead. Their lips are cracked, their cheeks pale and drawn. Every breath sounds like it could be the last. The healer, a woman with streaks of gray in her hair and hands stained from grinding herbs, works silently, checking the patient's pulse, pressing a hand to their chest. She murmurs something under her breath, more a prayer than a diagnosis. The truth is, she cannot stop the unseen enemy any more than anyone else can. She can only try to slow it. By nightfall, the streets are emptier than usual. Doors are barred, windows shuttered. The lanterns flicker weakly, their light swallowed by the mist. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell tolls once, not for the hour, but for a death. It echoes through the narrow streets, fading slowly until the silence returns. You lie awake that night, listening. Every cough outside feels closer than it should be. Every creak of wood sounds like a footstep approaching your door. The fire burns low, and you pull the blanket tighter around you, but the cold is not what keeps you from sleep. It is the knowledge that here you can do everything right, eat sparingly, keep warm, avoid the wrong streets, and still find yourself at the mercy of something you cannot see, hear, or touch until it is too late. The unseen enemy does not sleep. And in the dark, you begin to wonder if it has already found you. The day does not wait for you to wake. It begins long before the first pale light touches the rooftops, when the sky is still an unbroken sheet of black, and the air has the heavy stillness that comes just before dawn. Somewhere in the darkness, a rooster calls, not the cheerful greeting you've imagined from books, but a rough, guttural cry that sounds more like a warning than a welcome. The cold bites immediately as you push the blanket aside. The hearth fire has burned down to gray ash, its warmth little more than a memory. You move carefully in the half-dark, your breath clouding in the air, the sound of your footsteps muffled by the dirt floor. Outside, the village is still wrapped in shadow, but it is not asleep. Lanterns swing faintly in the hands of early risers, their light bobbing between houses like slow-moving fireflies. The air carries the mixed scents of wet soil, smoke, and something faintly metallic, the sharp tang of iron from the blacksmith's forge already being stoked into life. You are handed a wooden pail before you've even spoken. It's heavier than it looks, the handle rough against your palm. Your first task is to fetch water from the well, along with others who trudge toward it in silence. The cold has stiffened the rope, making each turn of the crank a slow, grinding effort. When the bucket rises, its rim is slick with ice, and the water inside is so cold it numbs your fingers instantly. From there, the work divides. Some head to the fields, some to the livestock, some to the workshops. You follow a group toward the edge of the village, where the land stretches open and the soil lies hard beneath a thin skin of frost. There is no waiting for warmer weather. The ground must be turned, the furrows prepared, even if your breath fogs in the morning air. The tools are simple: wooden handles, iron blades, and they offer no mercy to the hands that grip them. Within minutes, your palms ache. The motion of lifting, striking the earth, and pulling back becomes a rhythm, steady but exhausting. The earth yields slowly, grudgingly, and the wind cuts through the gaps in your clothing each time you straighten. Hours pass without a proper rest. The only pause comes when someone brings bread, dense, cold, and slightly stale, along with a flask of thin ale to wash it down. You eat standing, leaning on the handle of your tool, the food disappearing in a few bites. There is no time to linger. The sun is low in the sky already, and the work is far from done. In the blacksmith's yard, the rhythm is different, but no less demanding. The air is warmer here, but it is thick with smoke and the constant clang of hammer on metal. The heat is not a gentle warmth. It is the kind that dries your mouth and stings your eyes, the kind that burns your skin if you stand too close. Every strike sends a shiver up the arm. Every piece of shaped iron, a weight carried from forge to bench and back again. Elsewhere, in the weaving room, women work at looms that creak and groan with each push of the shuttle. The wool smells faintly of the animals it came from, even after washing. Fingers move quickly, pulling threads taut, knotting ends, fixing mistakes before they can grow. The work is repetitive, but it demands attention. One lapse and an entire piece can be ruined. The hours stretch, blending into one another. Your muscles ache in places you did not know could ache. The weight of the tools, the bending of the back, the constant movement, all of it settles into your bones, making you slower, heavier, more aware of every step. By late afternoon, the sky begins to dim, but the work does not stop. In the barns, animals must be fed and watered, stalls cleaned, tools repaired. In the homes, meals must be prepared, bread baked, water brought in for the night. Even the smallest children have tasks, carrying bundles of firewood, shelling beans, stirring pots. No one is idle, because idleness here is dangerous. If the work is not done, something will be lost: warmth, food, safety. When darkness finally comes, it does not bring rest immediately. The day's labor leaves behind smaller tasks: mending clothes by the fire, sharpening tools, planning the next day's work. Only when the last chore is done do people settle, easing into the few hours of sleep before it begins again. You lie down that night with your body aching in a way that feels deeper than muscle, as though the weight of the day itself has sunk into your bones. Your hands throb, your shoulders burn, and when you close your eyes, you can still feel the motion of the work, the pull of the soil, the swing of the hammer, the push of the loom. Here, work is not just what you do. It is what you are. From the moment you wake to the moment you sleep, the day belongs not to you, but to the endless list of tasks that will be waiting again tomorrow. and the day after, and the day after that. The morning light falls unevenly across the village, striking the upper windows of the manor before touching the lower streets. It is a quiet reminder of how the world here is arranged. Those at the top see the sun first, and those at the bottom see it last. You notice it everywhere once you start looking. The manor house, sitting slightly apart from the village, is built of stone rather than timber. Its roof neatly thatched, and its windows fitted with glass, rare, expensive, and gleaming faintly in the cold light. Around it stretches a low wall, not high enough to keep out an army, but high enough to mark where one world ends and another begins. The road that leads there is smoother, its stones well fitted and clean, as though even the ground itself knows who will be walking on it. You do not take that road. Instead, you follow the narrow, rutted paths that wind through the lower village, where the mud clings to your shoes and the air is thick with the smell of livestock. Class here is not a matter of clothing alone, though that is often the most obvious marker. The Lord and his household wear wool dyed deep colors, blue, green, crimson, shades that do not fade quickly and are expensive to produce. The peasants wear browns and grays, their garments patched and worn, the dyes long since faded to pale ghosts of their original hues. It is in the way people move, too. The Lord walks with measured steps, flanked by guards, the space around him clear. The reeve, the village overseer, strides with purpose, carrying a staff as both a tool and a symbol of authority. The laborers bend their backs to the work, their gazes often fixed on the ground, not because they lack curiosity, but because looking up too often can draw the wrong kind of attention. You hear the difference in voices. The upper class speaks slowly, with the ease of those who are rarely interrupted. The lower speaks quickly, sometimes mumbling, careful not to overstep. Words themselves become a measure of distance. Taxes are collected here not in the way you might think, not quietly, not invisibly. They are taken in the open, sacks of grain weighed in the marketplace, livestock led away under the watchful eyes of the Lord's men. The act is as much a display as a transaction, a reminder to everyone watching of who owes and who owns. Land is the greatest divider. It is not simply where you live, but what you can live from. To own land is to have power, the power to feed yourself, to trade, to pass something on to your children. Most in the village work land that belongs to someone else, paying in labor, crops, or coin for the right to use it. The boundaries are invisible, yet everyone knows exactly where they are. You see it in the church, too. The Lord and his family sit in the front, nearest the altar, their benches carved and polished. The villagers stand or sit on rough stools toward the back. Even in prayer, the lines remain. Punishment for breaking these boundaries is swift. A peasant who takes from the Lord's storehouse might find themselves in the stocks, or worse. An artisan who fails to deliver promised goods could lose not just payment, but the right to work. A servant who disobeys risks losing their place, and without a place, there is nowhere to go. Yet, the chains are not always made of fear. Sometimes they are woven from habit, from the quiet belief that this is simply the way the world is. People are born into their place, and most will die there. Ambition exists, but it is tempered by the weight of reality, the knowledge that moving upward means climbing a wall that was built to be unclimbable. You begin to understand that here, survival is not just about enduring the cold or finding enough food. It is about navigating the invisible rules that bind every interaction. Speak too freely, walk in the wrong place, dress above your station, These are risks that can cost more than a meal. That evening, as you pass the manor's outer wall, you hear music drifting over it, the faint sound of strings and soft voices. Inside, a feast is taking place, the tables likely laden with roasted meats, fresh bread, and sweet wine. In the village below, smoke rises from hearths where thin stews simmer quietly. The only music, the hiss of boiling water and the crackle of burning wood. The wall between the two is not just stone. It is centuries thick, and here you cannot climb it. You can only learn to live in its shadow. The morning air is thick with a strange tension, the kind that seems to settle over the village like a low-hanging cloud. People move more quickly than usual, not stopping to speak. Doors open briefly, then close again, as if no one wants to linger outside. Even the market stalls are slower to open, their owners distracted by something else. You follow the quiet current of movement toward the square. It is not the usual market crowd. No baskets of vegetables, no clinking of coins, no bargaining voices rising over one another. Instead, the people stand in loose clusters, their eyes fixed on the wooden platform at the far end. The platform is not new. Its boards are dark with age, the grain worn smooth by years of weather and use. The rope hanging from its beam sways slightly in the wind, creaking with each movement. It is an object so ordinary here that no one speaks of it, but everyone understands what it means. Two men in the Lord's livery stand on either side of the platform, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. They watch the crowd, their expressions unreadable. A third man, dressed in a thick wool coat, reads from a parchment in a steady, measured voice. The words are formal, almost ritualistic, describing a crime and its punishment. The accused is brought forward. He is not bound at the hands, but his shoulders are tense, his face pale beneath a layer of dirt. His clothing is simple, the garb of a laborer, but torn at the sleeve as though pulled roughly. The crowd shifts, murmuring quietly, but no one steps closer. The crime is theft, though here that word carries more weight than in your own time. It is not merely taking something that did not belong to him. It is breaking the delicate balance that keeps the village tied to the Lord. A sack of grain taken without permission is not just food stolen. It is an act against the order itself. The punishment is read aloud not to inform the accused, he already knows, but to remind everyone else. Justice here is not a private matter. It is a performance. Its purpose is as much about what will happen today as it is about preventing anyone from testing the limits tomorrow. The executioner steps forward, his face hidden beneath a hood. His movements are slow, deliberate, each one an unspoken warning. The rope is adjusted, the knot checked. The crowd watches, silent now, except for the occasional cough or shuffle of feet. Children cling to their mothers, peeking from behind skirts. The accused says nothing. There is no chance for long speeches, no appeal to pity. This is not a trial. This is the final step in a decision already made. When it is over, the crowd begins to thin almost immediately. There are no cheers, no applause, only the quiet dispersal of people returning to their daily work. The platform remains, the rope swaying in the cold breeze. It will not be taken down. It will stand there, a reminder. Punishment in this place is not always death. Sometimes it is the stocks, a wooden frame in the square where a person is locked by the wrists and ankles, left to the elements for hours or days. Sometimes it is a fine, though for most, coin is rarer than bread. Sometimes it is exile, a fate worse than it might sound, for without the protection of a village, survival is unlikely. The harshness is not born entirely of cruelty. It is born of necessity, or at least what those in power call necessity. In a world where resources are scarce and danger is constant, order must be maintained, and fear is the most reliable tool. That night, the square is quiet again, the lanterns flickering in the wind. The platform stands empty, but the image remains in your mind. Here, justice is not blind. It watches closely, and when it moves, it strikes hard enough that no one forgets. The last light of day fades quickly here. There is no slow melting of gold into the horizon, no lingering glow to guide you home. One moment, the sky is a pale wash of blue and gray. The next, it is swallowed whole by shadow. The transition is abrupt, as if someone has closed a door on the sun. Lanterns appear in windows, their small flames trembling behind thin panes of horn or glass. A few are carried through the streets, the light swinging gently with each step. Beyond their reach, the village is swallowed in a darkness so complete that you can no longer tell where the road ends and the fields begin. The air is colder now, sharp enough to sting your cheeks. Frost gathers on the edges of the rooftops, glinting faintly in the lamplight. Every sound carries farther in the night. The creak of a sign swinging above a shop door, the distant lowing of cattle, the sudden bark of a dog. Each noise feels louder, more isolated, as though the darkness itself is listening. Inside the houses, fires are stoked higher and families draw close. Doors are barred, shutters latched. The village is not built for wandering after sundown. Those who linger outside are either desperate or dangerous. You walk slowly, the sound of your footsteps unnervingly loud on the uneven ground. Your eyes adjust, but the blackness between the lanterns remains thick, impenetrable. The shadows seem to move at the edges of your vision, shifting in ways that make you glance over your shoulder more than once. Beyond the village wall, the world changes. The fields lie silent, coated in frost that crunches softly underfoot. The forest beyond is a darker shape against the night sky, its branches swaying in the wind. The sound they make is not the gentle rustle of leaves, but a low, creaking groan, like old timbers in a storm. From somewhere in that darkness, a sound drifts toward you, a faint, drawn-out howl. It is not close, but it is not far enough to ignore. It carries on the wind, followed by a second, closer than the first. The livestock in the pens shift uneasily, their movements restless. You remember the stories told in daylight, wolves bold enough to come close to the walls, drawn by the smell of animals and cooking fires. You head back toward the heart of the village. The streets are nearly empty now, save for the occasional figure moving quickly between doorways. In the square, the lanterns burn low, their light pooling weakly on the stones. The wooden platform stands in shadow, its outline barely visible. Even in darkness, it seems to watch. The silence here is not complete. It is broken by the crackle of fires, the occasional murmur of voices behind closed doors, the slow drip of water from a roof's edge. But it is a silence that weighs on you, a silence that makes you think twice before speaking, as though your voice might draw something unwanted from the dark. Inside, the world is different. The firelight dances across the walls, and the smell of wood smoke clings to the air. But even here, the night makes itself known. The wind rattles the shutters. The rafters creak. The darkness beyond the door feels like something you have to keep out, as if it is not just the absence of light, but a presence of its own. When you lie down to sleep, the stillness presses in closer. Every sound outside, a shift of hooves, a whisper of wind, the faint tap of something against the wall, becomes sharper, more deliberate. You pull the blanket higher, not because of the cold alone, but because some part of you feels that being covered makes you less visible to whatever might be watching. In medieval nights, the cold is only part of the danger. It is the silence, deep, patient, and alive, that truly keeps you awake. The night loosens its grip slowly. For hours, the darkness has pressed close against the walls, cold seeping through every crack, every seam in the wood. You've slept in fragments, a few minutes here, a shallow dream there, waking each time the wind shifts or a sound brushes too near the door. But now, the blackness outside begins to pale, ever so slightly, as though the world is exhaling after holding its breath. The first sign of dawn is not light, but sound. Somewhere beyond the village wall, a bird calls, a thin, tentative note, as if testing whether the day is truly coming. Then another answers, and another, until the silence is threaded with the faint stirrings of life. When the light does come, it is weak at first, a faint gray seeping into the streets, turning the frost into a dull shimmer. The rooftops glisten faintly, their edges sharp against the pale sky. Smoke begins to curl upward from chimneys, slow and lazy, the fires inside being coaxed back to life. You step outside, the air crisp and cold enough to sting your lungs. The village is waking, but it is not the eager bustle of a new day. It is a measured, careful rising. People move with the knowledge that the work ahead is the same as the day before, heavy, unrelenting, necessary. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, the cobblestones still slick from the night's frost. Your breath hangs in the air, breaking apart in small clouds as you walk. A cart creaks past, its wheels leaving faint marks in the frost, the ox pulling it, plodding steadily forward. The driver nods once, his face hidden beneath the shadow of his hood. You pass the well, where a woman hauls up a bucket, her breath puffing with the effort. The rope groans under the strain, water sloshing against the sides. She pours it into a wooden pail without spilling a drop, the kind of practiced precision born from doing the same task every single day in every kind of weather. Beyond the well, the fields lie quiet under a thin veil of mist. The soil is frozen, but people still walk its edges, checking boundaries, watching for signs of damage from the night. In the distance, a shepherd moves his small flock toward what little grazing land remains, his figure a dark silhouette against the pale horizon. You find yourself pausing in the center of the village. Around you are the echoes of everything you've seen, felt and endured in this short time, the cold that cuts through every layer, the hunger that gnaws without pause, the shadows in the streets that never stop watching, the invisible hand of disease that can sweep through without warning, the relentless weight of work, the chains of class, the harshness of justice, and the unsettling silence of the night. Here, there is no single danger that defines life. It is the accumulation of all of them, the way they weave together into something constant, inescapable, and exhausting. Survival is not a matter of luck alone. It is the daily act of enduring, of meeting each hardship with whatever strength you have left, and hoping it is enough. The sun finally clears the horizon, its pale light spilling over the rooftops. It is not the warm, golden light you know from home. Here, it feels thinner, more fragile, as though it could vanish at any moment. And yet, it is enough to make the frost sparkle, enough to cast long, delicate shadows across the ground. You stand there for a while, letting the cold air fill your lungs, watching as the village moves into the rhythm of another day. The sounds grow, the ring of a hammer from the blacksmith's forge, the low murmur of voices in the market, the bleating of goats in their pens. Life continues, as it always does here, not because it is easy, but because it must. And as you watch the people around you, the steady way they walk, the quiet strength in their movements, you understand why few from your own time would last even a single day in theirs. You turn toward the rising sun, feeling its faint warmth on your face, and realize something else. In this place, dawn is not a promise of rest or comfort. It is simply the signal that it is time to begin again. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.